Welcome to another edition of Making an Impact, or as I like to call it, Making Marcus Suffer. We
Yeah,
are
that's a good
back.
subtitle. Good
Well,
subtitle.
it's
That's
a
a good
it,
subtitle.
it's an accurate subtitle. Is what it is. We are back with episode 2 of the rebooted Making an Impact. It's the long journey to glory, is what I like to call this. Marcus is suffering through the first couple years of NWA-TNA pay-per-views, the weeklies, as we call them here on the show. And he got through the first two that crowned Ken Shamrock and AJ Styles as the NWA and TNA X Division champion, respectively. That's the NWA World Champion, I mean. And then the TNA X Division Championship champion. Now we're on to the NWA World Tag Team titles. We have tournaments already underway. And with that, we're gonna kick it off. Your commentary trio, Mike Tenay, Ed Farrar, and Don West. They're in town. They're doing another tour, like they did last time. They were at Mobile, Alabama, I believe, last time, and now they're in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Municipal Auditorium, which would be the site of a future Slammiversary. I want to say 2007, maybe 2008. So they're going to do a live show, which I believe is number 3, and then number 4 will be a tape show. So with that said, let's go through this because holy hell. The very first thing that we do is get we get introduced to Jim Wilson, or Jim Miller, excuse me, and he brings in a wrestler I've never heard of, zero knowledge of. He says that a Japanese wrestler by the name of Takeo Omori will be taking on Ken Shamrock next week. So that's their big get. And that takes us right into match number 1. James Storm and Chris Harris, the soon-to-be titled, but not currently titled, tag team of America's Most Wanted, take on the Johnsons, a.k.a. the Dicks, who are, I forget their names, they were the Gemini in the WWE, and they wore giant beige costumes with masks, which were basically just condoms. And there were some innuendos during the match. It went 5 minutes. Storm and Harris won, and I'm so sorry, Marcus. I'm so very sorry.
Mm.
Thoughts on the opener?
Um,
I think we momentarily lost Marcus. So we'll give him a second so he can. There it is.
difficulty. Yeah, that was yeah, I remember the Gemini vaguely. They performed well. Big muscle guys, obviously, America's Most Wanted. Seeing those guys again, probably never get tired of seeing so many of these guys in their first iterations. On these shows in particular, no matter how, we got some real kooky stuff sprinkled out. This was cool though. This was cool to see. But Gemini look good. It's just like they look like creative wrestler luchadors. Yeah.
They were walking dicks. Like that wasn't even a gag on my part. That was literally what they were going for.
Yeah.
Can't make this shit up, man. I mean, you can try. But why would
Wish
you?
it was made of.
Well, like, why would you want to? So that we go on, and Mortimer Plumtree is their manager. He actually is a very decent addition to the roster, but he doesn't really do much of anything. We then get a interview segment with Scott Hall. That basically boils down to, I think Jeff Jarrett comes out, K Crush comes out, and we're starting to see who the headliners are for Ken Shamrock's title. It's not a great scene. They're doing the best they can. They could be doing better. So that takes us to Harrison Storm getting laid out. Oh no. Then we get Anthony Ingram taking on a corn-rolled Monty Brown. This is Monty Brown's first appearance. And he's rocking Abyss's old theme song. from back in the day.
Yeah, he was.
Thoughts on Monty and his Alpha Bomb finisher?
Yeah, man. It was interesting to see, man. Pre-pouncing Monty, man. Like the first thing that immediately threw me off, like you said, was the theme song. Like, wait a minute. He started out with a business theme because I think uh once was it Orton that had CM Punk's first theme. They tried it out for him like once, but
I
yeah,
think
man,
you're right.
pre-pounds Monty. Yeah, it was pre-pounds Monty. He looked good, and then obviously, cause I think obviously when I started watching TNA, I guess towards the time before he left, he was doing the pounces to finish it, not so much the alpha bomb anymore. Um, but yeah, he looked good. This was obviously an enhancement match. He looked good, all up and all that jazz, and yeah, not as big, but yeah, still in hella shape. He was certainly, even in this early stage, he was captivating.
He would not last. I think he'd maybe last a couple months, and then he'd be gone from screens, and then he'd come back in late '03, early '04, I think. So let me ask
Yeah.
you this, just in your own personal opinion, you going with the cornrowed Monty Brown? You're going with the high top fade Monty Brown? It's not really a high top fade; it's more like a low fade, but still, fade or cornrows.
I'm going with Fade because by that time he had that personality where it's just like I don't know what he just said, but it was cool. So yeah.
So we get two back to back segments that are horrifying. On one segment, we get Goldilocks looking for Jim Miller, only for Puppet the Psycho Dwarf to show up. And excuse the quote, but I'm going to say it. He wants to make midgets bleed. In a show full of offensive nonsense, this might be among the highest of offensive nonsenses. But that's not all. We then go to Goldilocks, who's with Buff Bagwell and Apollo. Fun fact, Apollo used to be the original key guy of LAX. When Conan got the group going, he was going to be the guy. He wasn't, and he was replaced with Machete, and then he wasn't, and then he was replaced with Hernandez. And Homicide was just like, just give me some motherfucker to tag with. So a fun little fact there. They're doing a little team up though, because Apollo at the time is a pretty big deal in Puerto Rico, and Bagwell still has some vibes, if you will, from his run in WCW, which only ended some 15, 16 months prior. They're going to win the NWA World Tag Team Championships because the only belts Buff Bagwell ever wins are the World Tag Team Champions. That brings us to Buff and Apollo versus the Rainbow Express, which was Lenny Lane and Bruce, who had already got a new gimmick. Bruce was doing a Hulk Hogan shtick on week 1, and now week 3 he's doing a Loverboy shtick, if you will. This was not a great match. Apollo was somebody who looked great, but I never enjoyed any of his matches. Lane was actually Lane. It angers me that Lane was always just kind of pegging himself or getting pegged into a situation where he was always a controversial gimmick, because a lot of people thought that he had, at least in the ring, not necessarily personality wise, but in the ring had Chris Jericho level talent. But he very rarely ever got to showcase it. And considering that this was mostly booked by Jerry Jarrett, who has recently passed away, and Dutch Mantel, not Dutch Mantel, Ed Ferrara, these matches weren't going to be all that great. Sadly, the work rate would be few and far between, and it's why the X Division got so much hype so early, because it was oftentimes the only thing to look forward to as far as in-ring content goes. The Rainbow Express win in a pretty short match. Mark, has any thoughts so far on what you've been watching? Because I know it's not been great.
No, it's not. And coming all the way from the midgets must die. Like it kind of reminds me of that guy we was talking about who what Was he Latino and saying Latino slurs or something?
Who?
Somebody at a show. He's reminding me of this midget wrestler who keeps saying disparaging remarks about his own kind. Uh, I'm trying to. I think the guy we was talking about had like a MAGA moment at a show or something.
No, it's possible. We'll have to
Yeah,
go into a deep dive on that here in a second.
yeah, yeah, from going from that to this, and you know, 'cause I had asked you like I think it was the last time we did this, like how many versions of like the Express knockoffs have there been? And you said like several.
Mm.
But yet there was nothing to shake anything at, much less a stick.
So Marcus says he lost to two gay guys, so he's going home.
Okay, come here.
Somewhere AJ Styles completely understands how Marcus Bagwell is feeling.
He was, he was too busy trying to get over, but he had thoughts about this stuff.
He tried to play it off as this big emotional "I'm not buff anymore." It didn't work. We get Ken Shamrock being interviewed by Jeremy Borash in the ring. Tonight he's taking on Malice, and next week he faces Omori. Then he will be happy to send Monty Brown home with his head shoved up his ass. Because apparently Ken Shamrock is offended by caramels. Maybe he thought they were corn, and when he saw them and it weren't corn that he could eat, he got very upset. We get Jim Mitchell appearing right after Shamrock's little promo. He says, "Hey, worry more about Malice, not so much about anything else." And Malice beats up Ken Shamrock, and everyone's like, "Oh no." Then we get a Jerry Lynn and Bill Burns interview with Goldilocks. Lynn thinks he can find a partner and can replace James Storm and Chris Harris in the tag team tournament. I wonder who it's gonna be. We just mentioned his name. Then we get match 4, and Marcus, this is where a bad show gets worse. Puppet, the Psycho Dwarf, or is it Psycho Dwarf or Psycho Midget? Puppet took on Todd Stone in a match that I can't ever get back. These are 2 minutes that you will never ever get back in your life, and I apologize. He does attack Mark Johnson, Jeremy Borash, and Don West with a kendo stick afterwards, so that's not bad. But this is the worst part of the show, and this is not a good show.
No, it's not. And then obviously, to me, these earliest parts of the show had one clear narrative above all, and that was that Double J was a menace, like a freaking menace, like circa Triple A circa early 2000s type menace, which is funny to watch.
Yeah, and the problem is it basically boils down to Jerry Jarrett and whoever else was on the booking committee at the time were basically just doing what WCW did when they closed, thinking that would work. It didn't. We get a Ken Shamrock interview. It doesn't lead to anything. Then we get Mike Tenay hyping up a lingerie battle royal. That's something. Oh, it was last week's battle royal. That's right. I got confused for a second. I want to be confused because some of this content is terrible. We get Francine versus Taylor Vaughn in a one-on-one match. It's not good. Nothing to talk about. It's just two women rolling around, grabbing each other's hair and trying to tear each other's clothes off. So, 5 stars. Talked myself into it, Marcus. I talked myself into it.
Yeah.
The worst part was after the match, Ed Ferrara grabs Francine in places that you don't grab women without consent, and so she slapped him with the belt. And it was supposed to be this big to do, and it was awful. We then get Hermie Sadler doing an interview. Marcus, how are you feeling about Hermie Sadler's involvement?
Cause he's on the
He makes left turns for a living.
Yeah, that was interesting because didn't he get involved? This was just when Quick got involved with everything, right?
Yep.
And then would bring in the son of a certain king. Um, it was, but it's just one of those things where it's like the whole time, every time this something about this came up, I'm like, y'all could be doing so much more quick than this. But alas, these were very, poorly executed variety shows.
I feel like they're trying to be more Jerry Springer than they were wrestling at this point. So it wasn't good.
What what gave it away? The girls in the cages, or the very physically harm threatening midgets.
Yeah, the little people doing their thing is definitely up there. I don't have a problem with the go-go dancers in the cages because those are pretty wide bars, so it's not like they're in actual cages. They're more like dance platforms with brackets. I thought it added a unique twist to the proceedings. Plus, we had the Nitro Girls. I think wrestling needs cheerleaders. I say bring back the dance teams. That's my personal opinion. We get Ken Shamrock versus Malice. They tried to do a lot to get Malice over as a threat, and Ken still eats him alive in 6 minutes. I really don't know what the hell they were doing with this main event scene at the time. Like Malice was just really trying to make him like their Undertaker because if they were, they like went bargain basement. Like I don't know if you ever did this, Marks, but like when you went to the drugstore as a kid, you would always see the off-brand toys like GI Jack and like the mighty flippin', frog destroyers. And they'd always be off-brand versions of popular toys. I feel like that's what Malice is. He's the off-brand Undertaker, but they didn't give him any money. They're like, just wear black. That'll be your shtick. You're the black trunks guy. Didn't work.
Yeah.
Didn't work at all. It's terrible. Shamrock's matches in Impact at this time, or NWA-TNA at the time, don't give me much confidence either. I don't think. I think he has two good matches, and the one against Malice was not it. Any thoughts on the first defense of the NWA World Championship in TNA? Because that's what this was. This is the first time the NWA World Title has ever been defended in TNA or Impact Wrestling. Thoughts on that, Mark?
It was cool. It was cool. It was cool that it was Shamrock. Probably could have had a better opponent, but I think at least, also about to talk about the second show, his opponent and match got elevated when he got past it. But it was just something fun to do. Like you said, it was trying to market. He was that monster guy. Like you said, took him down in no less than what you said, 6 minutes. Um, because submissions usually equalize things, So yeah.
It equalized my desire to keep watching this show. The next match sees David Young taking on AJ Styles. Young would actually stick around for a while. This might be the best match in company history through 3 weeks. Young's biggest claim to fame was he went on like a 100-match losing streak in TNA. So yeah, David Young. We then get main event time. I think we had like 4 matches in this entire tag team title tournament, so that's reassuring. It's the Rainbow Express versus Jerry Lynn and his tag team partner AJ Styles. The irony of this match being not only for the main event, not only being for the NWA World's tag team titles, but AJ Styles taking on 2 gay guys. I think we're starting to see why he feels the way he does about the gay community. I don't think he's a fan. Styles and Lynn end up winning. The match was fine. I think the X Division match with Young and Styles may have been better, but you saw more from Lenny Lane here. Jerry Lynn was still pretty much in his prime. I think he was 37, 38 at the time, so he could still go. Styles was just coming into his prime. Everything about this worked outside of the actual story arc of Bruce and Lenny Lane doing their what's an appropriate way of saying this? Their compassionate reflections of endurance? No, endearing. They were a little too on the nose with the gimmicks. Marcus, thoughts on the main event and Jerry Lynn and Styles winning tag titles and Styles being the X Division champion at the same time. First time the company had a champ. Any thoughts on this one? I think we have some more momentary technical
And we'll
difficulties. There he is.
put out a second there. What was you said? My thoughts on the main event?
Yeah, with Jerry Lynn and winning the belts and AJ 2 belts.
Oh, I thought it was great, man. I think Styles and Lane get go together quite well when they gel, and this was a kind of it made the match more interesting because obviously Lynn was putting in work, but Styles was picking his spots at times where Lynn was like, "What the freak are you doing?" And then it got to a point where it was like feel like AJ was in a handicap match, and then ended up squeaking out the win, and that whole concept of Lynn just going like, yeah, I'm really like tagging and a tag team champion with this like his face just read piss head. Like he was calling Styles a piss head in his head, and it was just it's not too often we see that teams immediately have that type of tension. It usually grows into that, but that I think that's what made that so exciting. Specifically, just coming off him essentially losing to him for that X title. So
I'm gonna be a spoiler alert here. That's gonna come back and bite them in the ass. Sorry, it wasn't. It wasn't the main event. My bad. Should have been. It wasn't. Jim Miller shows up. He's got "FU" painted on him because that's the thing. Then the real main event, which shouldn't have been the main event, which was terrible. We got K Crush and Jeff Jarrett versus Brian Christopher making his debut, and Scott Hall. Or is it not his debut? I can't remember. This is all starting to bleed into my soul. I think Christopher was in the first battle royal, so never mind. This match sucked. Jarrett did the best he could. Him and K Crush on their own can have a decent match. Brian Christopher was never a great worker, and Scott Hall was hopefully sober-ish during the match. It definitely wasn't as good as the tag team title match or the X Division match. But it was fine. It was fine. It wasn't the worst match on the card by far. We had worse matches. Jarrett and K Crush get the win in about 12 minutes. And they basically build up to next week with, I think it's Hall versus Jarrett next week. Thoughts on the main event? The real main event.
it should have been the second to last, but Jarrett, you know, he got the strongest narrative or the most consistent narrative on the show. Like I said, he's a menace on these earlier shows. Um, and that's how it went. But that they peaked at that second to last match, like you said. Biggest takeaway from the show was that being the best match, and they should have stopped it there. Not probably, they should have stopped it there.
I like how you're being very sincere. Like they needed to stop it. They needed to stop it there. Like that was enough. We suffered enough. The sincerity, Mark, is delightful. Number 4, NWA Weekly That's all, folks. NWA-TNA Weekly number 4. We are up. We're off. We're going. Same place. We're at the municipal auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee. We get an opener. It's Slash and Tempest of the New Church. Tempest is, if I remember correctly, Crowbar from WCW. Is that who this is? So that's interesting. They're taking on Styles and Lynn. Slash is okay. I wouldn't say he's anything special. Tempest is I think he's the linchpin to his team. The other team has Styles and Styles and Jerry Lynn, so I feel like they have something going for them already right there. It was fine. Tempest and Slash have no real chemistry. Slash would later, who would he team up with? Was it Malice later? Because he would win the tag team titles with somebody. I think it may have been Malice, but I could be wrong about that. Thoughts on the opener, Marcus? How do you feel about the new church?
Yeah, the faction couldn't really click in too heavy. It was fine. Well, decent opener, but I think this card certainly got better towards the latter half.
Fun factoid: Slash, for those wondering, is actually former Wolfie D of PG-13. So, oh, and you're gonna laugh about this. So remember how I told you that they're basically making Malice the budget um, Undertaker?
Yeah.
At a certain point, I think in 2003, they end up pairing Slash, aka Wolfie D, with Brian Lee to win the NWA World Tag Team titles, and Brian Lee actually was the budget Undertaker. He was the Faker Taker from SummerSlam.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So that's fun. That's fun. All right, let's move on and hope to God we don't have to deal with that anytime soon. Styles and Jerry Lynn are having issues already because Jerry Lynn thinks Styles is upstaging him, and of course that's the way it goes because these cliched wrestling tropes are cliched wrestling tropes for a reason. TNA sends to a package at ringside to hype up last week's main event and talk about it. Scott Hall does a promo via a phone call, promising to come after Jeff Jarrett and Brian Christopher, which is funny because he's still in the arena because they're filming this right after the first show. Okay. Sure. Brian Christopher comes out, cuts a promo, talks about life as Jerry's kid. He says that he's no longer Jerry's kid, but he's going to be Jerry Lawler from now, Brian Lawler from now on. And then he beat up Norman Smiley, and I cried.
You and me both, bro.
Why they never did more with Norman Smiley? Like, Norman's still coming off of the apex of his run in WCW where he was screaming Norman. Like, why would you not bring in a hot gimmick like that? Screaming Norman was great. I love Screaming Norman. You love Screaming Norman. Screaming Norman loves Screaming Norman. And we couldn't get that? Like, I don't know. Maybe he wanted more for himself. Maybe he didn't. But Norman got screwed. Just the way it is. In the back, we get Bill Burns and Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett wants a title shot tonight, but Bill Burns says nothing about it. Burns knows what Jarrett did to Jim Miller last week and suspends Jeff Jarrett. Arr. Why would you let him in the show if you're just going to suspend him? Wrestling logic. We then get K Quick talking about NASCAR, and it's match 3. It's K Quick versus Hermie Sadler. At one point, if I remember correctly, Hermie Sadler grabs a imaginary wheel and drives around the ring. Or that may have been in 2005 when he wrestled again for Impact. I can't remember. Because all this blurs together. Hermie, for not being a wrestler, does okay. It's still bad. And K-Crush, if I remember correctly, cheated to win. Couldn't beat a 30-something-year-old 5'7" NASCAR driver. Yeah. Thoughts on Hermie Sadler's in-ring debut? He is a top NASCAR name. Like, this is the equivalent of getting Justin Herbert of the LA Chargers in NASCAR world in 2002. It's like, this was a big get. How do you think he did? Marcus is dead quiet on me at the moment. More lingering
I'm
issues.
muted myself. Um,
I love it when it's you muting yourself because that makes me chuckle.
yeah,
I get a good laugh out of that because I
it's
do
just
it to
interesting.
myself.
Yeah, it's humbling. Um, yeah, it's just interesting because obviously he dominated what like a. This was just kind of plotting, really, because it just like obviously it was inevitable. They've been coming out back and forth weeks, but there was no real because he had a team out there with him, didn't he? Like by the ring.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, quick. Upgrade to win. I'm pretty sure it might be over, likely not. So this gives him something to do, but it's like, oh, they could have. I don't know how they didn't have, and maybe they do it. I'm just because I haven't seen it. Could have put Quick in the X division to me.
He would eventually get a shot at the X Division, I think in like 04, 05. But I don't think it was on pay per view. It may have been against Joe. No, I
Mm,
remember what it was. It was Destination X 05. It was a four-way. It was Skipper, Daniel Styles, and Ron Killings. And it was a
mm,
three stages kind of match where the first stage was a fatal four-way where the first person who gets eliminated um, has to go. And then there's a triple threat aspect, I think, of it. And then whoever got eliminated there was gone. And then they did a one-on-one in an Ultimate X match.
mm.
Let me see if I can pull this up because I remember there like being another element to this. I can't spell destination. Yep. They actually just uploaded the main event of the show onto YouTube. It was DDP versus Jeff Jarrett.
Mm.
It just says that it was an Ultimate X match for the TNA X Division title, but I feel like that's not accurate. Because I remember distinctly this having levels to it. But we'll get there. We'll come back to that here. In the next match, well, we get Takeo Omori warming up. He's doing his thing. We then get the debut of young Mark and Jay Briscoe taking on the Hot Shots. At the time, if I remember correctly, Mark Briscoe's not even 18 at this point in time. And the Hot Shots were Chase Stevens, who will eventually go on to be Andy Douglas's partner in the Naturals, and Cassidy O'Reilly, who would most be famous in TNA for being a Ravens lackey before he got fired in 2005. Now, he wasn't actually fired, but like storyline. This was fine. It ends in a no DQ or no contest, I mean, when the new church show up and start beating everybody up. They are really trying to push the new church as this big villainous stable. And then they have Omori make the save because I know I want a dude who I just met some 30 seconds beforehand making the big save for the pop in Nashville, who's from Japan in 2002. All that makes a lot of sense. Marcus, any thoughts on this one?
No, PJ Briscoe, man, it was cool seeing. Like, these dudes were like babies here, man.
Yeah.
Nuts. But yeah, that was the coolest part to me, seeing baby Briscoes.
Baby Briscoes. Okay. We move on to Goldilocks interviewing the Dups. Stan gets me on an emotional level because he enjoys corn dogs. I too enjoy corn dogs.
Love a good corn dog.
Everyone loves a good corn dog. We then get Jasmine St. Clair coming out. Oh, Marcus. Are you aware of who Jasmine St. Clair is?
Please enlighten me.
What was that?
Like, please enlighten me.
Oh, well, at the time, you could say she was the Lena Paul of the adult industry.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
I
she
definitely
was
know
a
that name.
She was a quote unquote big get, if you will. I think at the time she was dating the
I
Blue
bet
Meanie.
a big get. I bet. Um, and this is the segment with boys.
Yeah, this was the segment with. She comes out. Weston Ferrara are drilling over themselves. She's been watching the show and is waiting to see some ass. We all know that what the letters TNA stand for. Does anyone want to see some TNA tonight? She has it, and she will flaunt it. Jeremy Borash gets a lap dance, and then Bill Burns covers her up. And then Ed Ferrara spears him because nothing screams functional society like spearing your boss when you're worried about seeing boobs. Granted, at the
Baby
time,
boy.
the internet wasn't nearly as popular as it is now.
Yeah, and didn't they have some idiot in the audience pull his shirt up and start wiggling?
Yeah, I think so.
The hell? Yeah, I guess that was their um DX moment, but like done wrong. Like when Triple H had the chick pull her stuff up, pull her shirt up. But obviously nobody wanted to see this. But yeah, I was wondering, was that like a stunt panty pull down? But now that I've been informed of a background, I likely wasn't. So
Nope.
yeah, yeah, good old JB definitely sold it though. I doubt he had to do much acting.
Yeah, that's fair. We then get the Dubs taking on Jorge Estrada and Sonny Siaki of the Flying Elvises. 5 minute match, not long. The Elvises go over. Siaki's already starting to kind of have heelish vibes to him. This stable won't last for long. Shocking, I know.
No,
I know when we talk
no.
about great Impact stables, great TNA stables over the years, it's the Main Event Mafia, Fortune, Decay, and then Flying Elvises right there. Negative.
Right before you get to the Wolves, you got to bring up the Elvises. You can't skip over.
Nope. Can't do it. So we get Jerry Lynn turning heel on AJ Styles. It's not great. He hits him with a cradle pile driver. And we move on to the first tail of the tape that we're going to get from TNA. It's Omori versus Ken Shamrock for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. Fun factoid, it doesn't have a conclusion. Jeff Jarrett runs in and ends things. Thanks.
The Menace.
So, like, I love Jeff Jarrett. I think he's fantastic. And I don't blame him for a lot of this show because, let's be honest, Marcus, would you rather be watching Apollo cutting promos with Buff Bagwell, who lost to gay dudes, Psycho the Puppet Dwarf, or Jeff Jarrett? Like,
Oh, he was absolutely a necessary evil. Um, it just it's like he's literally like the white Simon Phoenix of the show.
oh, jeez.
Oh, I'm telling you, Jarrett is going for guitar.
I love that we just dropped a Demolition Man reference
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I think it came on last night or whatever. And it never gets old. It never gets old.
Well, you're going to need the three seashells to get through this show, that's for sure. Jeff Jarrett attacks Harley Race backstage, and guess what? We don't get a Harley Race promo to remember us by, so like that's a waste. Then we
Yeah.
get Goldilocks with Jerry Lynn. She wants some answers for what he did to Styles. Lynn gets a little creepy. Says, "You want some? Open up and say ah."
Oh, yeah. These women interviewers had some very interesting exchanges during this whole period. But again, this is the show that has, like you said, the cage dancers. They just literally almost had like um this was the precursor that lap dance was the precursor to the live sex celebration. It,
And
uh,
it's not even all. We then get the new church, and then we get Bill Burns with "fu" on him, and he's like bug ass naked, but not actually bug ass naked, but he's kind of bug ass naked. And it is like 30 seconds, and we get like three different segments all in one. They really know how to give you the most bang for your buck. And by buck, I mean 10-cent piece. My 10-cent piece, I mean syphilis-ridden 10-cent piece. So we actually do get a good match, despite all that. It's an X Division rankings match with low-key elite skipper Kid Romeo, Tony Mamaluke, Christopher Daniels, and Jerry Lynn. All these names are pretty big. Tony Mamaluke, of course, was one part of the FBI with Little Guido, and he was also Tony Marinara in WCW, who was boshing around the a team of Big Vito and Johnny Stamboli, Johnny the Bull Stamboli to be exact. Kid Romeo would go on to win the WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team titles with Elite Skipper. The WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team titles were short-lived, but Romeo and Skipper made the most of them, I guess. Do you remember the WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team titles? Am I saying WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team titles enough?
Yeah, I think we've reached capacity.
I can say it again. The WCW World Tag Team Cruiserweight Tag Team titles. They were around for 8 days.
What?
I'm not kidding. Romeo and Skipper defeated the tag team of Rey Mysterio and Billy Kidman at Greed on March 18th, 2001. The company was shuttered March 26th.
I feel like that should have been a passing sentence in a Dark Side of the Ring episode. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's funny about that Shamrock match didn't get a conclusion because that was actually going quite well to me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then, like you said, this exhibition thing was where it was at. And they closed it out, and thankfully they gave it a conclusion before they did run-ins. Yeah, this was just peak stuff because these guys, like you said, the exhibition thing was the thing to look forward to because it was the one thing in these wacky variety shows that you could depend on besides Menace Jeff Jarrett. Um, so yeah, good stuff, man. Elix Skipper going off. Obviously, low key's legs was rated E for everybody.
Yeah.
It was, it was
I like
no
that.
like this. That was good, man. So it was fun and like a young fallen angel, man. That's some classic stuff, man. If they ever do, it's also not lost on me that a lot of these early like NWA TNA pay per views very much these matches very much come off like how the TNA video game work to me. Because how these moves have been executed and performed, how guys are hitting the mat, bouncing off the thing, and everything. So that's fun. But yeah, it was cool. I think low key closed it out and got the win. So that was cool. Like I said, you know, it's funny that the earlier days, like the best thing was to end on the X division. When as years would come, it would be the thing to kick off the show, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it is a nice juxtaposition, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Fun fact, though, who else was in this match? So, Elite Skipper Kid Romeo, but also AJ Styles was in that WCW Cruiserweight Tag Team tournament. Yoon, who would be one of the Jimmy Wayne Yang, who's in the Flying Elvises. Johnny Swinger, the Swing Man. I think his career is yet to peak. He's a young whippersnapper. So it's kind of funny that there were some names in this tournament, and WCW, I should say TNA was capitalizing on them for this show, for this company. We then get Jeff Jarrett coming out to close the show, and he wants his title shot, and he yells at the Tennessee Titans at ringside, and then he gets his ass kicked, and then randomly, fucking New Church runs out for some reason. Doesn't make any fucking sense, but it's one of the most iconic scenes in TNA history. Is Jeff Jarrett fighting the Tennessee Titans?
It's just hilarious. Cause like before I made a reference earlier about Jarrett and the guitar. This was pre-guitar years apparently.
Well, no, not
he came
really.
up.
They didn't have the budget for the guitars in TNA.
Gotcha. So he was like he had a chair for the community, and no, normally, obviously, somebody about to swing on you, getting you get your hands up. This last part, they were getting their hands up like F your chair, cuz. Like, it was weird. Oh, it was
So there was
hilarious.
a big black dude who was with the Titans. I think he was their right tackle. I remember his
Uh,
face. I don't remember his name. I'm actually gonna Google
he got
Tennessee
his hands up
Titans.
barely and then fell. Like, it was hilarious.
No, well, no. The best part was, if I'm remembering correctly, the sequence of events. He was the one who bum rushed Jarrett and got him against the ring. Was that the right guy? Is that the guy that I'm thinking of, Marcus?
Okay, I'm watching it back now. Let's see this. Because
Fred
now he's
Miller.
getting poor bull rash. Like the king of getting berated.
I want to say it was Fred Miller of the Titans. He bum rushes
Ah,
Jarrett
he
against
barely missed that snap.
he bum rushes Jarrett against the ring apron, but then he starts doing these overly dramatic wind up punches. I think it was either
Yo,
him or Wycheck.
they make Jared look like a child. I'm just like really beating his ass. This is hilarious.
It's one of the biggest moments in TNA history.
Shit, the black dude felt like he got hit in his balls from the back. That was hilarious.
The funny thing is, like, I used to be like such a big Titans fan. So like, what would have been 16-year-old me would have been all about this segment because
Yeah,
I could have named every single person that was there. I could have really hyped myself up about this. So it was the white guy who jumps the
yeah,
barricade, throws the worst
yeah. That was
punches, but then he yokes him into the barricade. Oh, it's
yeah.
great.
He was housing them, bro.
And then he
And then
calls
he
for
called like
Fred Miller to come over
yeah.
the ring. Uh,
Oh
and then
man,
I don't know who
Jared.
the dude in the baseball cap is, but he's got terrible punches, man.
When you got dudes that big on you like that, house, it got to be a specific type of hell because you can't do spit with them. Like you just can't.
Whoever that white dude was, who bummed Jared at
Was not
first,
playing.
whipped him into the ground.
He was
Oh,
not.
he was
Yeah, I'm
like,
like
listen, your build is
this what Chad,
220, but I'm gonna show you that you're not.
I'm like this is what Chad did doing security because like that's why I said like they made him look like a child, specifically the big white dude in the white.
Yeah, and he was wearing like he had like what kind of shorts were those? Like flood shorts? Like they went down
Yeah,
past his calf. Like what are you doing?
Jared was seconds away from hitting the that's my purse.
I don't know you. That's my purse. Here's the funniest part about this. This would not be the first time or the last time that the Tennessee Titans would be involved with the folks with Impact. In 2007, they would bring in Frank Wycheck, who was a legendary Titans tight end for them. And then later that year, they would bring in former Titans cornerback Adam Pac-Man Jones. It's pretty wild
uh,
stuff.
yeah, man.
And then a few years after that, we'd get some Carolina Panthers up in the house.
Yeah, man. Which was a more successful endeavor at the time. I remember us talking about that when it happened. That was pretty good. He showed
Yeah.
up and showed out.
And I don't know why D'Angelo Williams didn't want to keep going with wrestling because he was pretty damn good. And he only had like a week of training. So we'll be back next week for more NWA-TNA nonsense as we make Marcus suffer. So, Marcus, any final thoughts on anything with what we saw this week?
I'm gonna look up this St. Clair chick and get some business advice.
For educational purposes,
Obviously,
with Safe Search on.
obviously. I'm like, wait a minute, my first time in history being a TNA fan jealous of Jeremy Boran. Oh,
I'll tell you what, Marcus, before we leave. Jeff Jarrett and Jasmine St. Clair oftentimes have the same situations.
hilarious.
All right. RealNerdCorp.com, RealNerdCRP.com. Marcus on Twitter at Paradox Kid, PARADOXKID.
That's me.
You can also find on the podcast, The True Penny Show, TRUEPENNYSHOW. I'm on Twitter at CHADNERDCRP and on Instagram at ChadSphoto at CHADSPHOTOHUT. Website's realnerdcorp.com. We'll be back next week for another edition of Making an Impact, a.k.a. Making Marcus Suffer. For Mark Screen, I'm Chad Pardo. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking it out. Thanks for giving us a chance. Remember to always watch more wrestling. And Marcus, take us home.
Good night.